Good morning, students. So, in income tax, today we are going to discuss with the residential status. So, residential status is also under Unit 1. So, in the previous classes, we have covered with what is the income tax, its rules, exemptions, okay, tax, rebate, those all things we have covered in previous classes. So, today we are going to see with the residential status. So, actually in the previous class itself I have said what is a residential, who is called as a resident, those all things, but detailedly we are going to discuss over here. Okay now, so listen carefully, and very important topic, even it is important for as usual theory and some also for long question. Okay, see, income tax is chargeable in respect of total income of a person earned during the previous year. So this point already I have said to you. So tax means what? Nothing but if a person is earning in the previous year how much of income he has earned, on that we have to calculate a tax, that is called as an income tax. Then here who has to pay the tax? That is the main thing here. With nothing but the person's status should be a residential. The person status should be residential. It depends upon his status, whether he is a resident or non-resident. Okay, see here, the scope of total income depends upon the residential status of a person. Okay, what incomes are to be included and excluded in computing total taxable income, that is the income earned and received in India only is taxed, or the income earned and received outside India is also taxed, depend upon the residential status of the SSC with reference to the relevant previous year. Okay, so here if suppose a person is earning income only in India, means what happens, ma? Even we have to see the residential status. Even we have to see the residential status. Or else if a person is getting an income from India and also from outside India, there also we have to see the residential status. Nothing but for calculating the tax, calculating a tax of a particular person, we have, first of all, we have to see the residential status of the previous year. Okay, that is a point over here. So for us, what is the previous year over here? 1920 is the previous year. Okay, that you remember. Okay, if the residential status of a person is a resident, then he has to pay the tax on global income, that is the income received in India and also on the income received outside in India. Okay, if a person, listen carefully, ma, if the residential status of a person is resident, okay, then he has to pay tax on global income, that is the income received in India and also income received from outside India also. Nothing if a particular person for the previous year, if suppose he is a resident, so the income how much he is receiving in India and also from outside India, if suppose he is receiving an income from outside India also, compulsory he has to pay the tax for it. Clear? If the residential status of a person is resident, if a person is a resident, okay, later on I will explain who is a resident and who is a non-resident. So first you listen here. If a person status is a resident, okay, for the previous year, then he has to pay the tax. He has to pay the tax even the income he is receiving in India and also from the income which he is receiving from outside India. For the both the incomes he has to pay the tax. Okay, if he is a resident. Next one. On the other hand, if the residential status of a person is a non-resident, then he has to pay tax on the income earned in India only. Okay, listen, if suppose a person, okay, for the previous year, if suppose a person is a non-resident, then what he has to do, ma? He has to pay the tax only the income which is earned in India. Okay, nothing but the income which he is getting from India, only for that he has to pay the tax in case of non-resident. Clear? See, here he has given example also. For example, Ram and Shyam are having some income. Okay, nothing but if suppose he has an income of 7 lakhs, so 3 lakhs income is earned and received in India. Okay, 3 lakhs income he has earned and received in India. Nothing but from 7 lakhs, 3 lakhs he has received it from India and 4 lakhs income he has earned and received from outside India. Okay, if his residential status of Mr. Ram, if the residential status of Mr. Ram is resident, then he has to pay total taxable income, okay, is rupees 7 lakhs. Nothing but on the, so here what happens means, here's listen carefully, ma. So here Ram, see for example Ram and Shyam are having the same income of 7 lakhs. Ram and Shyam having the same income of 7 lakhs. 3 lakhs income is earned and received from India, and 4 lakhs, remaining 4 lakhs income is earned and received from outside India. Nothing but Ram and Shyam both is having 7 lakhs of income, and 3 lakhs is earned in India. Okay, 3 lakhs amount is earned in India, and 4 lakhs is they are receiving from outside India. For the both of them, same concept. So if the residential status of Mr. Ram, residential status of Mr. Ram is resident. If suppose Ram is a resident, so he has to pay the tax on this 7 lakhs. He has to pay the tax on this 7 lakhs. Okay, clear? If the residential status of Shyam is non-resident, he has to pay tax only on this 3 lakhs. Nothing but the income which is received in India. Okay, on this only he has to pay. Okay, so జాగ్రత్తగా వినండి అమ్మా. ఓకే, సో ఇక్కడ ఎవరిని రెసిడెంట్ అంటారు, ఎవరిని నాన్ రెసిడెంట్ అంటారు, ఫస్ట్ ఇక్కడ వినండి. సో ఎవరైతే మనకి ప్రీవియస్ ఇయర్ అంటే ఏంది 2019-20, ఎవరైతే మనకి ప్రీవియస్ ఇయర్లో ఓకేనా రెసిడెంట్ అవుతారో ఆ రెసిడెంట్ అనే వ్యక్తికి అతను ఇన్కమ్ ఇండియా నుంచి ఇన్కమ్ తీసుకుని వచ్చినా లేకపోతే ఫారెన్ అవుట్ సైడ్ నుంచి ఇన్కమ్ వచ్చినా కూడా అతను టోటల్ ఇన్కమ్ మీద ట్యాక్స్ పే చేయాలి. అయితే ఎవరైతే నాన్ రెసిడెంట్ అవుతారో అతను ఓన్లీ ఇండియా నుంచి ఎంతైతే ఇన్కమ్ వస్తుందో దాని మీద మాత్రమే అతను ట్యాక్స్ పే చేయాలి. క్లియరా? అదే ఇక్కడ కాన్సెప్ట్ అనమాట. ఓకేనా? నెక్స్ట్, సిటిజన్షిప్ ఆఫ్ ఎ పర్సన్ డస్ నాట్ డిటర్మైన్ ది రెసిడెన్షియల్ స్టేటస్. సో హియర్ with the citizenships, we can't say that whether he is a resident or non-resident. That is, the citizenship of a person is determined according to the provisions of the Constitution. Okay, while the residential status of a person is determined according to the provisions of the Income Tax Act 1961. So here what happens means, with the citizenship itself we can't say that whether it's a resident or non-resident. It is totally depends upon the provisions of the Constitution. Okay, so here the So okay, so with citizenships we can't say that whether he is a resident or non-resident. Okay, see here, the term residential status is a technical term and is determined for deciding the tax liability of a person. Citizenship is general term and it grants the fundamental rights of an individual. Citizenship of a person does not change every year, but residential status of a person may change every year. The change depends upon the movement of a person from India to the other countries and visiting India from other countries. So listen here. So residentialship will decide the tax liability, nothing but will determine the whether he has to pay how much of tax on his income. That decides the residential status. But citizenship is nothing but it is a fundamental right of an individual. So with citizenship we can't, nothing but citizenship will be same. It won't be changed. If a person is born in India, so he will be getting a citizenship of India. But residential status totally depends upon the person, that how many of years he is there in India, and how many of years he is there in India, or else the person who is coming from the outside, nothing but a foreign person, if suppose is coming, is staying in India, okay, then it totally depends upon his residential status ma. Okay, so ఇక్కడ వినండి, రెసిడెన్షియల్ స్టేటస్ అనేది దేనికోసం, ఒక ట్యాక్స్ పే చేయడానికి కోసం మాత్రమే అది ట్యాక్స్ లయబిలిటీ. అంటే అతని రెసిడెన్షియల్ స్టేటస్ బట్టే మనం ట్యాక్స్ లయబిలిటీ ఎలా అనేది క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేయడానికి అవసరం ఉంటుంది. సిటిజన్షిప్ అనేది ఏంది, ఇక్కడ ఒక ఫండమెంటల్ రైట్. అంటే ఒక ఇండివిజువల్ అతను ఇప్పుడు ఈ కంట్రీలో బోర్న్ అయ్యాడనుకో, ఈ కంట్రీలో పుట్టాడనుకో, సో హీ విల్ బి గెటింగ్ అ సిటిజన్షిప్. ఓకే, అదే ఇక్కడ పాయింట్ ఇక్కడ. సో ఇక్కడ రెసిడెన్షియల్ స్టేటస్ సిటిజన్షిప్ ఏం చేంజ్ కాదు, సిటిజన్షిప్ అనేది చేంజ్ కాదు. కానీ రెసిడెన్షియల్ స్టేటస్ అనేది ఎలా ఉంటుంది అంటే పర్సన్, ఓకేనా, సో కొందరు ఏమంటారు, ఇక్కడ బాన్ అయినా కూడా ఫారెన్లో ఫారెన్లో వర్క్ చేస్తుంటారు. సో వాళ్ళ రెసిడెన్షియల్ స్టేటస్ మీద డిపెండ్ అయి ఉంటుంది, వాళ్ళు ఇండియాలో ఎన్ని రోజులు ఉన్నారు, ఫారెన్లో ఎన్ని రోజులు ఉన్నారు, ఆర్ ఎల్స్ ఫారెన్ పర్సన్ వచ్చి ఇండియాలో ఎన్ని రోజులు ఉన్నారు. సో రెసిడెన్షియల్ స్టేటస్ అనేది ఓన్లీ మనం ట్యాక్స్ కోసం మాత్రమే మనం కన్సిడర్ చేస్తాం ఇక్కడ. ఓకే, అది పాయింట్. క్లియరా? నెక్స్ట్, see here, for every assessment year, the residential status of an SSC for the relevant previous year is to determine. For example, an SSC may be ordinary resident for the first assessment year, not ordinary resident in the second assessment year, and non-resident in the subsequent years. Okay, so in a simple words, the residential status of a person depends upon his movements. That is, if he is leaving the country and comes back frequently, then his residential status is bound to change. That is, an SSC may have different residential status for different assessment years. If a person stays in India for quite long period, say 10 years or more, then he will be considered as a resident and non-resident. So here what is the point he has given means totally for every assessment year, the residential status of a person will be different. If suppose in the previous year he may 6 months here and in 6 months he is staying in foreign country, let us think, okay, or else totally previous year he has stayed in India only. So here what happens is here we can't even consider only that 1 year. Okay, so here his residential status will depend that whether he is a resident, ordinary resident or non-resident. It totally depends that how many of years is there in India. Nothing but there will be a lot of changes for each assessment year. Okay, సో దట్ ఈస్ ద పాయింట్ హీ హాస్ గివెన్. సో ఇక్కడ రెసిడెన్షియల్ స్టేటస్ అనేది మనం కరెక్ట్గా చెప్పలేము. రెసిడెన్షియల్ ఇతను రెసిడెంటా, నాన్ రెసిడెంటా, ఆర్డినరీ రెసిడెంట్ అనేది మనం కరెక్ట్ చెప్పలేము. సో రెసిడెంట్, ఆర్డినరీ రెసిడెంట్ అండ్ నాన్ రెసిడెంట్ అనేవి మనకి కొన్ని రూల్స్ ఉంటాయి. ఆ రూల్స్ ప్రకారమే మనం చెప్పగలుగుతాం. ఓకే, చూడు ఇక్కడ అండ్ ఎస్ఎస్సి మేబీ ఆర్డినరీ. ఫస్ట్ యూ సీ హియర్ an SSC may be ordinary resident for assessment year. For first assessment year he may be ordinary resident. For the next, not ordinary resident in the second assessment year. In second assessment year he may be a not ordinary resident and non-resident in the subsequent years, means 3 or 4 years, 5 years he may not be a non-resident also. So here what happens means resident will be regularly, there will be a movements and there will be change. Why? Because some days he may stay in India, some days he may go to the foreign countries also. That totally depends. Okay, so here he has given an example. See, if a person stays in India for quite long period, nothing but continuously, if suppose he is staying in India for 10 years, then that person is considered as a resident and ordinarily resident. Nothing but those 10 years, continuous 10 years is not going anywhere. He is staying only in India, then that person is called as a resident and non-resident. Okay, that is a point. That is the introduction in case of residential status. Now you see residential status and the previous year. He has given section 6. The income earned in the previous year is assessed in the respective assessment year. Therefore, the residential status of the previous year is prime factors is laying tax. Under any circumstances, the residential status of a person during the assessment year is not to be considered. If an SSC has been treated as a resident, okay, of one of the sources of income, then he will be treated as resident for all the sources of income. Okay, section 6 contains the provisions of determining the residential status of different types of persons. The conditions laid down in this section are very strict and rigid, and no relief is granted even if they stay on SSC falls short or exceeds by one of the prescribed limits. So under the law, every person will be deemed to be resident and ordinarily resident unless and until he proves that his residential status to be otherwise. Okay, so as per this section 6, what they are saying, you see for in the case of previous year, residential status and previous year, both we are discussing. So residential status is nothing but as per the rules which are given by our IT, nothing but government. The person, even one day also we should not change. Okay, one day also we should not, even one day. That is a point he has given. The resident status strictly they have to follow. See, therefore the residential status of person previous year, residential status of previous year is prime factor. Previous year mainly is prime factor. Why? Because on previous year incomes itself we will calculate the tax. Okay, in laying the tax, and that is under any circumstances the residential status of person during the assessment year is not to be considered. Okay, so here what he is saying means residential status. Okay, residential status is a prime factor over. So on the depending upon the residential status, okay, during the previous year residential status, okay, of a person during the assessment year is not to be considered. Previous year itself we have to consider, not the assessment year. Assessment year is nothing but for the previous year incomes we will calculate the tax. okay, in the assessment year. So what is the previous year for us here? 1920. మనకి ప్రీవియస్ ఇయర్ ఏందమ్మా ఇక్కడ 1920. ఆ 1920లో ఒక పర్టికులర్ పర్సన్ ఇన్కమ్స్ మీద ట్యాక్స్ మనం క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేసేదే 2021. ఆ 2021 అనేది ఏమవుతుంది ఇక్కడ అసెస్మెంట్ ఇయర్ అవుతుంది అనమాట. సో ఒక పర్సన్ ప్రీవియస్ ఇయర్ అంటే 1920లో అతను ఆ ప్రీవియస్ ఇయర్ మీద డిపెండ్ అయి ఉంటుంది. అతను ఎన్ని రోజులు ఇండియాలో ఉన్నాడు అనేది డిపెండ్ అయి ఉంటుంది. సో దాని మీద బేస్ చేసుకొని మనం అతను రెసిడెంటా కాదని చెప్తాం. సో ఆ ప్రీవియస్ ఇయర్ రెసిడెన్షియల్ స్టేటస్ బట్టే మనం ఈ అసెస్మెంట్ ఇయర్లో ఇన్కమ్ ట్యాక్స్ అనేది క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేస్తాం అనమాట. సో హియర్ అండర్ సెక్షన్ 6, so we have divided residential status of a person has been determined over here. So what is that means? Once you see here, person means what? Individuals, nothing but if individual persons will calculate. Hindu undivided families comes also person. Firms or association of a person, nothing but partnership, business are also considered as person. Companies are also concerned as person. Every other person is also considered as person. Partnership and limited liability partnership, these all comes under person. Individual means nothing but individual person. He will be paying tax on his income. Joint Hindu undivided family, nothing but Hindu undivided family business we have. For that also we have to pay the tax. Firms and association, for them also we have to pay the tax. Companies also we have to pay the tax. Nothing but the income which is earning by the company, for that also we have to pay the tax. Every other person, nothing but like statutories, those all things will, for there also we have to pay the tax. Partnership and limited liability person, so partnership business and limited liability partnership, even they have to pay the tax. So these all comes under the person definition is very important even for short question also. Okay, so note here, to determine the residential status for each type of a person, a separate set of rules to be followed for each type of person. Here 6 I have said na. So for all this we have a separate rules. For individuals we have a separate rules. For Hindu undivided family we have a separate rules. Firms or association of person we have a separate rules. Companies we have a separate rules. So totally finally I can say what is the residential status in the previous year, how many days he is there in India and how many days he is not there in India, it depends. Okay, so that person is called there we have to decide whether he is a resident, non-resident, ordinary resident or non-resident. There we have to decide it. Okay, so this is the introduction in case of residential status ma. So tomorrow I am going to discuss with the individual topics, nothing but what are the rules and regulations are there. Okay, very very important topic, long question. So maintain the notes regularly. Today what I have said. So okay, idanతా notes lo rasi jagrata pettukondamma. Okay na.